Always do your best. The Transformative Wisdom of Jim Rohn. I am Jim Rohn. And today I'm going to share something with you that might irritate some people, but it will liberate others. Wealth is not luck. It is not politics. It is not privilege. It is a spiritual, biblical, mathematical, and now scientific formula. And the most astonishing part? God taught this formula thousands of years before science ever existed. And while many people wait for life to change on its own, Jesus already said, "According to your faith be it unto you." Matthew chapter 9, verse 29. And science today confirms. What you believe with conviction shapes your behavior, your choices, and ultimately your reality. But let me ask you this. Backhand index pointing right, do you truly believe you deserve to prosper? Backhand index pointing right, or deep down, do you feel fear, guilt, or shame when you think about money? Because if you are afraid of money, money will be afraid of you. Today I will show you the formula for wealth in a way that is simple, direct, and practical. It is the same formula that changed my life, and it can change yours if you allow it. When I discovered that everything begins within us, it was as if someone had turned on a light in a room where I had lived in darkness for years. And it is interesting because the Word of God always made this clear. Jesus said, "If you believe, you will see the glory of God." And I spent a good part of my youth waiting to see in order to then believe, but that is not the way. First you believe. First you affirm. First you declare with faith. Science today calls this neural programming, cognitive psychology, or confirmation bias. But God was already calling it faith thousands of years ago. And that is when I realized something uncomfortable. It was not the world that was limiting me, it was me. Have you noticed how most people talk about scarcity even before talking about possibilities? I can't do it. It's not for me. I've never been lucky. Is it a coincidence that these same people live exactly that kind of reality? How many times have you repeated phrases like that without even realizing it? I repeated them. Every day. And I was not even a negative person, I just did not understand the principle. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs could not be more direct. So let me ask you a simple yet profound question. What have you been declaring about yourself? Because if you wake up saying life is hard, your brain will work all day to prove you right. If you say, "I never have opportunities," you will ignore everyone that appears. Science confirms that the brain filters reality based on your beliefs. It is called the reticular activating system. God knew this before any laboratory existed. But what impresses me most is not the power of belief. It is the fear people have of it. Fear of dreaming. Fear of believing. Fear of appearing arrogant for wanting to prosper. How many times have you felt guilty just for wanting a better life? As if desiring growth were a sin. But the Bible does not condemn prosperity. It condemns arrogance. It condemns greed. It condemns pride. Prosperity with purpose is an honor to the Creator. And I had to learn this the hard way. There was a time when everything seemed to be going wrong. I was in debt, insecure, and frustrated. And one day, tired, I said out loud, "I don't think life was made for me." It seemed like just a venting of frustration. But it was a seed. And seeds grow, especially the bad ones, when you do not notice. In the following months, everything got even worse. Until my mentor asked me, "Jim, why are you saying that about yourself?" And I replied almost without thinking, "Because it's true." He smiled and said, "No, Jim. It only became true because you repeated it." That broke me down. I felt small and ashamed but also awake. Because in that instant I understood. I was not describing reality, I was creating reality. And I cried. Not from sadness but from realization. It was as if God was saying, "Son, I gave you the power of the word, use it wisely." So I started to test a new way of speaking. Not with arrogance but with faith. I am learning. I am growing. I am capable. God has bigger plans for me. At first it felt like a lie. My mind resisted. But faith is not a feeling, it is a choice. And something extraordinary happened. Small opportunities started to emerge. I began to see things that had always been there. Because faith does not just create the destination, it opens your eyes to the path. And perhaps you are experiencing exactly that right now. Maybe you are not a failure, you are just blind to your own potential. Perhaps the problem is not a lack of intelligence, contacts, beauty, money, or a degree. Perhaps the problem is internal. Fear, old beliefs, or words spoken without thinking. Who convinced you that you cannot? Who taught you that prosperity is dangerous? Who planted the idea that you are less? And why are you still believing it? I learned that you do not have to wait for your life to improve to start speaking like someone who has a better life. You need to speak first. The word comes first. It always has. It always will. And when you declare with faith, your body changes, your posture changes, your interpretation changes, your decisions change. And when your decisions change, your destiny changes. But be aware, it is not enough to repeat phrases like a parrot. You need to feel, imagine, visualize, and see yourself on the other side. Not as a fantasy, but as someone walking with God on the journey of purpose. Because when belief aligns with action, discipline, and responsibility, miracles stop being the exception, they become the consequence. So here is my invitation. It is not a request, it is not a promise, it is an experiment. For the next 7 days, every time you think or say something negative about yourself, stop, breathe, and replace it with an affirmation of faith. Something simple, direct, and possible, such as, I am becoming wiser with every challenge. God is shaping me. I deserve to grow. Do this with intention. Do this with consciousness. And observe not just what changes around you, but what changes within you. Because before life improves outside, it needs to improve inside. And when it improves inside, nothing else can stop it. I am proof of that. And if it worked for me, who started with no money, no direction, and no belief, why would it not work for you? After all, you are also a creation of God. And God does not manufacture people without purpose. Never has. Never will. Underscore when I finally understood that having money and having a rich life are completely different things, it was like a slap of reality. And it hurts because for a long time I believed the problem was the economy, the government, my salary, or the lack of opportunities. But one day I read in Proverbs, the wise store up choice food and olive oil, but a foolish person devours all he has. And, with humility, I had to admit I was living like a fool. Not because I was irresponsible, but because no one had taught me another way. And perhaps you identify with this. How many times did your salary run out before the month ended? How many times did you promise to start saving when I earn more? How many times did you buy something just to feel, even if only for a few minutes, that you were rewarding your fatigue? And then came the guilt, the bill, the stress. Does that sound familiar? Science explains this today. 65% of people spend emotionally, not rationally. The brain seeks immediate relief, not future building. And look how curious this is. The Bible was already talking about exactly this long before psychology existed. God knew that, without discipline, our nature would lead us to waste. I experienced this in an embarrassing way. At the age of 25, after 6 years of working, my mentor asked me, Jim, how much have you saved so far? I laughed, thinking he was joking. And I replied, nothing. He looked at me for a few seconds, and said calmly but firmly, then life paid you and you did not pay life back. I never forgot that phrase. My face flushed, my stomach churned, and for the first time, I felt ashamed not of my reality but of my habits. Because it is easy to justify, I earn little, everything is expensive, it's impossible to save these days. But do you know when it really matters to decide what to do with the money? When it is still small. If you do not know how to manage 100, you will never manage 1,000. And I had to learn this by facing the truth. Wealth does not start when the money arrives, it arrives when the behavior changes. And look at what else I discovered. Many people fear money. They are afraid to prosper. They are afraid of looking greedy. They are afraid of distancing themselves from people. But money does not change anyone, it amplifies who you already are. In the hands of someone guided by God, money becomes a tool, not an idol. Mary Kay Ash, a woman of faith who built a billion-dollar empire, said that prosperity is a consequence of serving others with excellence. And she lived exactly that, with purpose, generosity, and integrity. It was not luck, it was principle. Now tell me, why do so many people fight to earn money but do not dedicate 10 minutes to learning how to handle it? Why does a person spend years studying to get a job, but never study finance? Is it a lack of capability or just fear of facing reality? Because admitting that your financial life is not going well requires courage. And courage is faith in motion. I had to exercise this courage in a simple way. I created a habit. Every time I received $1, I set aside a part. In the context of converting money, the value of $1 in US currency will remain as $1, which is then written out. In the beginning, it seemed ridiculous, so little that I almost gave up. But all discipline starts by looking small. And one day I realized that it was not about money, it was about identity. I was becoming someone who honors what he receives. And when you take good care of the little, God trusts you with the much. Today, most people live in a silent cycle. Work, pay bills, buy something to relieve anxiety, repeat. Without realizing it, they trade the future for 5 minutes of pleasure. And I do not say this to judge, I say it because I was that person. And I only got out of that cycle when I stopped asking, how much do I earn? And started asking, what do I do with what I earn? So, if you allow me an invitation, it does not have to be forever, just for 30 days. Every time you receive money, any amount, set aside 10%. It does not matter if it is small. It does not matter if no one sees it. It does not matter if it seems useless. Because the goal is not to get rich in 30 days, it is to prove to yourself that you are in control, not the money. That is true financial freedom. And when you master money, something extraordinary happens. The fear decreases. The anxiety decreases. The future starts to seem possible, achievable, real. Because wealth is not a destination, it is a habit. It is a daily decision, silent, invisible to others, but deeply visible to God. And He honors that. I know you may not have started well. Neither did I. But that does not matter. Because wealth is not about where you are, it is about where you decided to go from now on. And the decision does not happen in the wallet, it happens in the heart. Underscore I learned that faith opens doors, but it is work that walks through them. And for a long time I thought that believing was enough. I would say, one day my life will change. But I kept doing the exact same things. Until the Bible confronted me, faith without works is dead. It is not incomplete, it is not weak, it is dead. And when something is dead, it does not produce fruit. It was at that moment that I realized it was not enough to ask God, I needed to walk with Him. And maybe you know that feeling. You pray, you dream, you wish, but when Monday comes, everything remains the same. You go to a job that does not inspire you, you do the minimum necessary, you hope the day passes quickly, and you wait for something extraordinary to happen on its own. But tell me honestly, how can life offer you the maximum if you give the minimum? How can you reap a great harvest with seeds sown halfway? Science has already proven this. 80% of people are dissatisfied with their professional lives, but less than 10% do something constant to change it. Not because they are lazy, but because they are afraid. Afraid to fail, afraid to try, afraid to hear no, afraid to discover what they are truly capable of. And fear is comfortable because it does not require movement. But God does not work in the comfort zone, He works in the territory of courage. I experienced this in an almost comical or tragic way depending on your point of view. When I started giving talks, I imagined packed auditoriums, applause, and recognition. And on the first night, 6 people showed up. 6. And 2 were only there because they were in the wrong room. I could have left, complained, and said, when I have a bigger audience, then I'll put in the effort. But at that instant, something inside me said, Jim, if you don't honor the small, you will never receive the great. So I delivered the best speech of my life to 6 people. And months later, one of them recommended me for an event that changed my entire career. That day I learned, God tests your dedication first before entrusting you with the reward. And that is why I always ask, are you waiting for motivation to act, or are you allowing action to generate motivation? Because most people think they first need to feel like it, to then begin. But it is exactly the opposite. When you act, the brain releases dopamine and the desire appears. Science and the Bible agree on this. Movement generates life. Even Jesus chose disciples who were working, not resting. And look at what is interesting. When you act with purpose, opportunities begin to arise where none existed before. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. When you start seeing work as a divine instrument and not as a punishment, your hands stop carrying weight, they start carrying destiny. Look, for example, at Kurt Warner, a Christian who worked years packing groceries in a supermarket before becoming the Super Bowl MVP. He did not know when the opportunity would arrive, but he knew that when it did, he would need to be ready. And he was. He did not wait for life to get better to act, he acted until life got better. That is the power of the combination of faith and work. So I ask you a few questions not to accuse you but to awaken you. Are you giving your job just enough not to be fired? Are you investing time in your purpose or just waiting for it to knock on the door? When was the last time you did something difficult, even without the desire? Because that is exactly where transformation begins. And do not think that excellence is perfection. Excellence is intention. It is commitment. It is doing your best with the resources you have today. It is studying 20 minutes a day. It is dedicating yourself when no one is watching. It is keeping the promise you made to yourself. It is continuing even without applause. True prosperity is born behind the scenes, long before the stage appears. So, if you will permit me, here is a simple yet powerful challenge. For the next 10 days, dedicate 1 hour daily, one single hour, to something that builds your future. Not the future of the company where you work, not the future of others' expectations, your future. It can be studying, planning, training, creating, entrepreneurial work, organizing, writing, or serving. But do it with intention, as if God were watching, because He is. And then tell me if your energy has not changed, if your self-esteem has not grown, if your ideas have not begun to multiply. Because when you do your part, God does the part you could never do alone. Life does not reward those who wait, it rewards those who show up. I learned that miracles exist, yes, but almost always they arrive disguised as work. And when you understand this, you realize that life is not against you, it is inviting you to participate. Not to be a spectator but a builder. Not to survive but to flourish. Because you were not created for half effort, half commitment, or half existence. You were created for fullness. And fullness begins when you decide to act. Today. Not when it is easy. Not when you have time to spare. Today. Underscore I discovered too late that having money and having a rich life are completely different things. And I had to look closely in the mirror to admit it. Because for many years I thought that when I earned more, I would finally be happy, have peace, and feel purpose. But one day I realized that if happiness does not fit in the little, it will not fit in the much either. And the Word of God already said this perfectly. For what good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? It is not about what you accumulate, it is about who you become as you walk. And science, interestingly, confirms this today. Research shows that after a certain financial point, an increase in income does not increase happiness, but purpose, relationships, spirituality, and contribution do. In other words, the human being was not created just to survive. We were created to belong, serve, love, and grow. Money can buy comfort but not meaning. And meaning is not for sale. And I had to learn this in practice. There was a time when I was traveling so much, lecturing so much, and producing so much, that everything became mixed up. Success, schedule, commitments, expectations. And despite living what I always wanted, I felt a silent void, almost imperceptible, the kind that no one sees, but that consumes you from within. One night, I was dining alone in a hotel after a huge event, and I realized I had no one to share that moment with. The restaurant was beautiful, the food was expensive, but the chair in front of me was empty. And for the first time in a long time, I did not feel successful, I felt lonely. I did not cry, I did not dramatize, I just stood there, in silence, and understood that I was building wealth by half. It was during that period that I found someone to share life with, and everything changed. Not financially but emotionally. Because sharing a dream is more valuable than conquering it alone. And at that moment I learned one of the most beautiful lessons of my life. Prosperity is not something you hold in your hands, it is something you live in your heart. The right smile, the right conversation, the right hug, are worth more than any asset. And maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you have money but you do not have peace. Maybe you have achievements but you do not have rest. Maybe you have accumulated things but you have lost time. And time, unlike money, does not come back. Have you noticed how the world applauds you when you are winning, but it is the silence that reveals who is truly happy? Have you noticed that people with much less seem much more fulfilled? I always say that lifestyle is not luxury, it is intention. It is not about spending a lot, it is about valuing things correctly. A rose given at the right moment is worth more than an expensive gift given too late. A simple dinner with someone you love is worth more than the most expensive table surrounded by people who merely tolerate you. The Bible does not say, live to impress. It says, live in love. And there are people who understood this beautifully. Like Tim Tebow, for example. He had fame, money, and the spotlight. But he decided that success without purpose was not success, it was waste. So he transformed influence into service, resources into impact, and victories into care for others. And today, when people talk about him, they do not just remember the athlete, they remember the compassion, the faith, and the life dedicated to what truly matters. That is the kind of wealth that time cannot corrode. And I ask you, kindly, are you building a life you would like to live or just a life you would like to show? Are you collecting things or memories? Are you seeking status or meaning? When you look around, do you see people or do you see objects replacing affection? Because living to impress is tiring, but living to express gratitude is liberating. True abundance is when you wake up with peace, sleep with purpose, and in the middle of it all, you can smile. It does not matter the size of your house if it does not have laughter. It does not matter the model of your car if you have nowhere to go with joy. It does not matter the balance in the account if the soul is in deficit. And no, this does not mean abandoning money or being ashamed of it. Money is a blessing when used wisely. God never asked for poverty, He asked for responsibility. The problem is not owning, it is being owned. Money should be a servant, never a master. So, if you will allow me an invitation, it does not have to be forever, just for the next 5 days, choose to live with more intention. Call someone you love. Forgive someone. Have a meal without touching your phone. Walk slowly. Give thanks for what you already have. Look at the sky. Give something to someone who cannot repay you. These gestures cost nothing, and yet they are riches. Because in the end, life will not ask how much you earned, it will ask who you became. And when you live with purpose, love, generosity, presence, and faith, something extraordinary happens. You realize you were already rich, you just did not know it yet. And then, everything that comes after, money, opportunities, achievements, stops being a necessity and becomes a consequence. A beautiful consequence of a heart aligned with God. If there is one thing I want you to take with you, it is this. True wealth begins within, in the faith you choose to nourish, in the words you decide to affirm, and in the actions you practice daily. When your heart, your mind, and your behavior align with what God has already declared about you, life stops being survival and becomes purpose. Nothing is more transformative than that. And if this thought made sense to you, then do not stop here. The next video that is appearing on the screen now is the next step of this journey, and together we will take one more step towards a life that is wiser, more conscious, and stronger, 1% better than you are now. Thank you for being with me until now. I await you in the next video. Let us continue growing.